Hey, it's 1 o'clock, and you know what time that means, and it's Friday. That means it's TuckerAllen Live here on Facebook, and welcome back. And happy Friday and almost the weekend. We're a couple hours away, and we're going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes about special needs planning. And once again, one of the TuckerAllen attorneys is joining. Teresa Yao, welcome.
Hi, Scott.
Happy Friday to you. So glad to have
Friday.
you. So I'm going to be watching everyone. I'm going to be watching our Facebook Live and making sure that I can answer any questions that you maybe have. And if you do, you can submit those in the comment section, and I'll make sure to get to those. So let's talk about it. I've heard it. We've mentioned it. You know, part of the practice over with you at TuckerAllen is estate and elder law. So I know you deal with special needs planning. So what is special needs planning?
Special needs planning, I think, is that umbrella term that we like to use, saying if there's a disabled individual, and what I mean by disabled individual, it's if determined by Social Security, so they're on some type of Social Security disability or on Medicare, in your family, whether it's yourself or a loved one, what can you do to make sure that, you know, you're able to provide for them without jeopardizing their benefits?
Okay. So when someone, I mean, I think when you mention that you may have someone who would be in that area, they don't know that they need a special needs trust. And so I guess what are the needs, and there's something called supplemental needs trust. What is it that they, and why would they do that?
Yeah, so I think the most common thing, a lot of times people are like, well, I can take care of my disabled adult child while I'm still around, but what do I do if I want to take care of them after I'm gone or after I'm incapacitated? Or are there ways to take care of them right now, like for me to be able to provide for them, but not make them ineligible for signing up for some benefits programs? So that's where these supplemental needs trusts come into place. Essentially, they're irrevocable trusts where funds can be put into this trust and can be used for the disabled beneficiary. The beneficiary can be the only beneficiary on the trust. It can't have anyone else. And essentially it's saying that this person, either they're applying for means-tested benefits programs, or they are already on means-tested benefits programs, and you're putting funds into this trust to say, hey, whatever is inside this trust, we can still use it to improve your quality of life and supplement any needs that are not covered by Medicare or Social Security or Medicaid.
I get it. So the theory being that if I set up a trust and I have someone who has special needs, but I don't set up a special needs trust, make sure I understand, is if I were to die, those funds that may be allocated to that person who has special needs may disqualify them for other aid. Is that, unless they have a special needs trust?
Yes. So if you have a beneficiary, like a child that is disabled, and in your revocable trust or in your will, you're saying, hey, I want things divvied up 3 ways across my 3 kids outright to all of them. So 2 of your kids can get them, they get their share. The third one, let's say they're on Medicaid, and you give them this money and with all good intentions, but that 1/3 share from your trust or from your estate is going to disqualify them for, depending on how much, potentially months of medical coverage that they were originally getting under Medicaid.
So it is, I mean, if you have assets that will be going down, it's a, even though there's a cost to set up the special needs trust, I mean, it's a huge savings, because if I understand it correctly, and they qualify for a benefit program, they don't need to use that special needs money first, or do they? How is that allocated? Or how do they use it?
It's kind of used concurrently. So in all of our regular revocable trusts, we always build in a provision, just because you never know in the future. Maybe you have all 3 healthy kids, but one of them gets into an accident, they become disabled. So we always build in a provision saying anything you leave to them, the trustee has a discretion to create a special needs trust to receive their share. But in this instance, we're more talking about while you're still alive. Before you pass away, though, if you have a disabled child that you already know is disabled and you want to be able to continue providing for them, but not pay the full amount of coverage for all their healthcare costs, but you want to be able to, pay for dental services that might not be covered under the program, or pay for kind of entertainment things like a Netflix subscription or something that's not covered, but you want them to have just a better quality of life. That's actually in concurrence. So let's say you have an adult disabled child who's on Medicaid right now, and a lot of their medical coverage is covered. They get a certain source of income from Social Security every month. But beyond that, your funds that you put into this special needs trust for them can help also pay for their monthly Netflix subscription or for treats or snacks.
So who determines that when we use the word disability? Is there a definition for that, or who decides technically who would qualify for the special needs trust?
So disability here is determined by Social Security. So if Social Security, if you are receiving disability benefits under Social Security, normally you're also on Medicare for healthcare coverage. But like we mentioned, Medicare is not great for long-term care coverage. Medicaid is normally the one. So a lot of times it's saying, okay, let me apply for Medicaid, which is the means tested program, in order to get more long-term coverage for my disabled beneficiary. But then you also have to make sure their assets are constantly below a certain level. And that's where special needs trusts come into play to help improve the situation.
I wasn't really avoiding it, but I'm pretty good at procrastinating. I needed a trust. When I found TuckerAllen, all our questions were answered, all of our fears allayed.
You want your wishes in place, so there's no guessing, no stress on the children.
Basically, they talk about what you need, what's important to you. It was more conversational, really very simple.
And I like the idea when you mentioned like helping the quality of life. It's not just medical care. Like you said, Netflix subscription, it's an amazing ability to set that money aside and not disqualify them for the aid that they may be getting in the benefit program. So, but it's not just, if I understand, it's not just for your children, but it could be a family member that you set up a special needs trust for?
Yeah, so I've been using the parent-child relationship as the default, but there's actually two types of special needs trusts, what we call first person and third person. And the distinction between them is really where are the funds inside the trust coming from? So the one that we've been talking about for parents to children, or even for like a family member saying a child to their parents, saying adult child taking care of their disabled parent or sibling, whatever, that's what we call a third party special needs trust, because it's essentially saying not the disabled person's funds, but like my funds are being put into this trust to take care of this other person. So that's a third party special needs trust. A first person special needs trust is saying the disabled person has their own assets, and their own assets are disqualifying them from these means tested programs right now, but they can take their own assets and put it into the special needs trust, get Medicaid eligibility, and the special needs trust can concurrently pay for those kind of quality of life things.
Got it. So I always like throwing you curveballs since I'm trying to understand the whole idea, especially. So does it have to be funded immediately, or can you fund it upon your death when you create a special needs trust?
It can be both. So that's the one where for the third person one, it can be both. For the first person, obviously it has to be funded while you're alive. It's your own funds to create this first person. But the third person one, that's the one where I talked about in all of our revocable trusts, we have that backup provision saying, if one of the beneficiaries were to be disabled upon my death, and if things are being distributed via this trust, my trustee can create a testamentary supplemental needs trust for this beneficiary. But it can also be created while, an adult child is alive, taking care of the parent, or the parent is still alive, taking care of the adult child beneficiary. So the third person one, you can create both.
Are there tax considerations if you're doing it in the first person, meaning how much can be put into the special needs trust?
So tax-wise for supplemental needs trust, essentially any earnings inside of the trust assets is taxed to the grantor. So whoever funds it is, who's putting it into the trust.
Are there limits on how much you can put into it?
No, there aren't really limits. So there is a limit though for first person trusts, in that since it's your own funds being put into the special needs trust, Medicaid, there's a Medicaid payback provision that needs to be in the first person one. So anything that's left inside the trust, if you're using your own funds in the first person, and if you pass away, there's still stuff inside that first person special needs trust, then Medicaid will be like, hey, pay us back for everything that we took care of for you first. And then you can pay your other people under this trust.
which leads into what are the limitations, what are the areas of concern, right? Because if you're going to wind up doing something that's going to pay back Medicaid, it's obviously you want to avoid. And so going into this, as you're listening, you got to think, okay, what do I need to be concerned about in terms of rules or limitations?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks of the first person special needs trusts, what we just talked about. Sometimes your hands are kind of tied, because if it is the beneficiary, like disabled person's own assets, it's not like you can give it away, because remember we talked about Medicaid, when you give it away, that incurs that penalty period. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's like, okay, if it's your own assets, unfortunately, like you have to put it into the first person special needs trust with the Medicaid provision. But in terms of pre-planning, if there's a way, for example, that you know this person's disabled and eventually they'll want to get onto Medicaid, then maybe it's not the smartest idea for you to leave things to them or give things to them directly. And so you create this third-party special needs trust ahead of time, so it can be this receptacle saying, my adult child is disabled. I want to put, $10,000 in there right now. And then his grandma or his grandpa is leaving him an inheritance, and this will be a receptacle to it. So it never goes to that disabled beneficiary's hands directly, so that it never has to be a gift that would incur a penalty period, and it never has to be put into a first person special needs trust.
So as I'm thinking through a couple questions, first is if I have a trust already, but I want to do either a special needs or a supplemental needs trust, can I do that even though I already have a trust in place, or do I have to redo the whole thing?
Yeah, you can just add a special needs trust in place, because it's a wholly separate trust, right? Because your trust is for you, and your kids as beneficiaries, it can be across multiple kids. But that one special needs trust is only for that one disabled person. So unlike regular trust where you can have multiple beneficiaries on each trust, it's supplemental needs trust is a one-to-one thing.
Got it. So then the last question I have, and I'll be watching again for questions anyone has in the comment section. The special or supplemental, does it have distribution provisions? And I use that word loosely. Let's say I die and the money's in this trust, and then that person dies. Do they have to have another trust to determine where their money goes to avoid probate, or what happens within the special needs?
So we definitely have contingent beneficiaries within the special needs trust. Like I said, with the first person one, Medicaid has to be the secondary beneficiary after the disabled person. But even after Medicaid, if there's anything left, even after Medicaid's paid back, we still have another level of beneficiary. So if this person has siblings, it can go to them. If it's a third-party one, then it doesn't have that Medicaid payback requirement. So you can just say, if the disabled person passes away, then it goes to my other kids.
Got it. So. Well, great. All right, Teresa, thanks again for bringing, this, what I think is a complicated area, and it sounds super complicated, but you make it sound easy when you break it down. So thanks again for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tune in every Friday right here, 1 o'clock Central Time. We'll just update you on some areas in estate, elder, and special needs, and all things with regards to estate planning, and we can do that. Make sure to check out TuckerAllen.com. You can schedule an appointment with Teresa by going online and hitting that button and picking the office in which you want to do, or you can go up into the Kansas City area as well, and of course, St. Louis metropolitan area. You can do that by going to TuckerAllen.com. Make sure also to take a look at all the resources on that page, and you want to register for the April virtual town hall coming up, where we'll spend 30 to 60 minutes just talking generally, but better is you can log in, you can register and ask questions live and get answers. We did that in March. You want to take a look at that one that's been posted, and you'll see a lot of questions asked by the audience in terms of estate planning, and we went into disability and all kinds of different questions that were great. So love to have you in the April virtual town hall. So check that out. But again, set the reminder, set the notification on in Facebook so that you're alerted when we go live every Friday, same time, same place. So until then, have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday.